All over the world, educators are discussing how to get the largest benefits from the money they spend in schools. In March 2012, the New South Wales Government announced its plans to give our schools more authority to make local decisions. As part of this reform, we are introducing a new Resource Allocation Model, or RAM. It's a fairer and better way of allocating the money that goes to schools. Once we have made the change, schools go from managing less than 10% of the total school education budget now to more than 70%. Why do we need to do this? Schools are best placed to make the right decisions about how they use their resources for their students. Each school community has its own unique profile and character, but our current funding model treats them all the same, using one-size-fits-all formulas. Over the years, we have tried to address the differences among schools by creating a number of different centrally run programs that give schools extra money or staff. This approach has become complicated and difficult to administer, with schools sometimes having to do separate plans, reports and budgets for each program. Our model also makes it hard for schools to plan from one year to the next. Small changes in student numbers can mean a school loses teachers, executives and support staff. School leaders across our system recognise that this needs to change. We need a funding model that is student-focused. It needs to be simpler, fairer and transparent. And it needs to give schools funding stability, so a small change in circumstances doesn't lead to a big change in resources. Rather than lots of plans, reports and budgets, schools will manage one budget, guided by a single school plan, focused on improving learning outcomes for students. So how will the new resource allocation model work? The first and largest component will provide a base for all our schools. An allocation for the type of school, primary, secondary, central or a school in a special setting. Funding for each student calculated to meet the staffing requirements under our class size policy. Funding to recognise the non-student characteristics of a school, such as whether it is in a hot or cold part of the state, and the condition of its assets. The second component will consist of equity funding. It will recognise the impact of complexity factors to achieve greater equity in educational outcomes. Finally, a third component will provide targeted funding for students who have high support needs. Through these components, the RAM will directly allocate over 70% of the total education budget to schools. So what happens to the other 30%? The new funding model recognises the strength of our public education system. Some major finance and human resource functions will remain at the centre. We also need to maintain a policy framework, set system-wide priorities and coordinate support for all our schools. The new RAM has been developed on the following core principles so that it is student-focused, evidence-based, balances simplicity, equity and efficiency, improves the stability of funding and provides a platform for future change.